What's up everyone, Taiki here. So today I want to discuss where I think we are in the cycle, how I'm managing my portfolio, and why I've sold off some crypto to take a more defensive position, and why I think the next area of opportunity in crypto is going to be with prediction markets. So first of all, obviously if you followed my channel over the last 6 months, I've essentially only made content around Maker and the DeFi trade, especially post election into the Genius Act with the stablecoin bill. And I thought the ETH outperformance, which I expected, would lead to a DeFi bid. And the vehicle I chose was to buy a lot of Maker, and not just a lot of Maker, like a lot of Maker. So I effectively 2x'd my crypto portfolio, so like levered long Maker, which was effectively over 100% of my net worth long, because I always, the rule I have with myself and my audience is that, over 50% of my liquid net worth will be in crypto assets. So as a result, I was like over 100% net worth long MKR. Definitely degenerate in some sense, but I thought it was an educated bet, and I've laid out my thesis on the channel. So unfortunately, I started buying this really aggressively in February, and the first few months it was great. The entire markets were nuking, Maker was going up, I felt like a god, and then the past few months it's been horrible as Maker has gone sideways to down, whereas the rest of the market have broadly gone up, or I guess mostly Ethereum. It always sucks when I have a directional bet on, or I make a bet that ETH will start outperforming, and then I buy a DeFi token because it's ETH beta, and then it just sucks, right? It's a dog of an asset. And that has led to a lot of anxiety on my part. I'm not sure why. I tend to be not be phased by volatility, and I think my mental game is pretty tough. But perhaps it's because as we approach the end of the cycle, and of course, we can argue about whether there are cycles or there are no cycles, but I'm under the belief that this time is not different, and there will be cycles, and there will be some form of a bear market. If that is my view, and the markets are getting heated, I think maybe this is relatable for you guys, but I think there's this fear that there's not much time left for the cycle, but I haven't felt like I made enough money where I would be comfortable, and that type of uncertainty creates some anxiety. And I'm not sure, that's why I feel anxiety. Maybe there's some anxiety in the sense that maybe last cycle I was fairly good at finding alpha, finding edge, just being in front of the market generally. But this cycle I've been less good at, comparatively to last cycle. I've been just not as good. And of course I have really high expectations for myself. So when those expectations are met, or when those expectations are not met, I generally just, I am hard on myself. And I think, just to be completely transparent, vulnerable, right? If you told me that at the beginning of 2023, which was after the FTX bottom, that this would be where my portfolio is at now, I would probably be not that happy. It's not that I've lost money, right? I've made money. I'm generally happy, and objectively I should be happy. But I think a lot of people are in a similar camp where, if we bet on crypto going up as a whole, I would have expected to make more money. Maybe that's just me. I don't know, or maybe I'm just washed or something. And there is the additional element of feeling washed to some extent, where maybe there's less alpha to be had in DeFi assets, whereas previously that was kind of my bread and butter, right? Because you always have to be open to the idea that what worked before in the past may not work in the future. So that's kind of where my head is at. And touching on where I think we are in the cycle, I mentioned before that I think we are getting heated. And if you asked me a year ago, the odds of a market top, I would have said under 10% a year ago, even 6 months ago, right, when ETH was going down. I would have said, yeah, there would be less than a 10% chance that the cycle is over. But fast forward a few months, it's August, almost September. I think the odds of a market top has significantly increased. The odds of a market top, is it 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%? I have no idea, right? But the risks have been elevated. And that is a reality. I think we all have to just come to realizations with that. And one way I think about markets is to think about the asymmetry of the opportunity, right? What is the risk reward of holding majors? Because if the majors top, altcoins will just nuke. So I always have to consider where the majors are at. And I think right now, Ethereum is the most important asset in crypto. That's where the majority of the bid has been. ETH has been such a hated asset, such a dogshit asset for so long. So even though it's underperformed everything else, or most coins, it does, like ETH pumping is definitely beneficial for the entire market. And if you overlay the ETH BTC chart to the Bitcoin price, typically whenever ETH BTC goes parabolic, that's when Bitcoin tends to top. So that's another thing to at least be concerned about. And also ETH tends to like pump like near the end of cycles. And looking at ETH, like maybe I'm too bearish, maybe I'm too pessimistic, but me personally, I don't expect ETH to hit $10,000 a cycle. I just don't. Maybe in maybe next cycle, but this cycle I just don't see it. Like I said, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm going to be right. And like I said before, my market takes maybe hasn't been that great. So maybe you shouldn't be listening to me, but hey, I'm going to offer my opinion and why I'm taking a more humble farmer approach, going back to my roots. If you look at Ethereum, it's sitting at $4,500 right now. How much upside is there left? Maybe 50%. That would put it at roughly 6.5 to 7K. And if you flash forward, or if you rewind back to last cycle, everyone was calling for 100K Bitcoin. I believed in 100K Bitcoin. But what ended up happening was Bitcoin topped at roughly 70K. And then we entered a bear market. So is it plausible that something similar happens, right? And this time it's not different, where everyone calls for 10K Ethereum every currency fork, and then we end up topping around 6 to 7K. I definitely would be not be surprised, especially given that the fundamental thesis for Ethereum has not really changed. Like, ETH at $4,500 versus ETH at $1,500, it really hasn't changed, right? Like the only thing that's changed is Joseph Lubin and Tom Lee has started like buying Ethereum with these digital asset treasury companies, which will be a risk at some point, I think. Of course, I have no idea, right? I'm not an expert there, but it does make me more conservative, right? Or like more skittish, let's say. And so let's say so my opinion is that maybe there's 50% upside left in Ethereum. And then that could be like close to the top. But cool, right? 50% is a lot. But of course, what if we did top, or we're close to the top? How much downside could there potentially be? I mean, realistically, ETH was just at $1,500 4 months ago. So there's nothing saying that we can't go back there, right? In the event that something bad happens to the macro, or something like bad happens to Sailor, or like these Tom Lee or something. But like, let's say, maybe like 1,500 was like the peak bottom, or let's say, perhaps maybe there's like 50% downside left in Ethereum, right? It can get to like 2K, 2.5K. So of course I'm making a lot of assumptions, but when I look at Ethereum, or even Bitcoin, I see assets where perhaps there's 50% upside in the cycle, but on the downside, there's 50, 60% downside. And, if you view these assets as investment vehicles, and you have to evaluate the risk reward of these assets at all times, you can argue that the risk reward is fairly balanced, where you're not really being paid that much upside for the amount of downside that you're paying, right? For the amount of risk that you're paying. So, of course, right? Like I said, I'm not claiming to be I'm not claiming to call top, and I'm holding it. I was mostly holding Maker, which is like kind of underperforming, right? So it's not even like I'm like trying to sell the top or anything. But as much as I want to make more money, I do have to be realistic with myself. Perhaps there's some bear market PTSD at the back of my mind, where I'm just grateful for the profits that the market has given me over the past few years. And perhaps what becomes more interesting is humble farmer opportunities, stablecoin farms, and other assets like GLP. So, like I said, I was previously 200% long Maker. Now it's closer to 50%, and I might trim that more in the future. But that's kind of close to where I'm at now. And then the rest of my bags are stablecoins and JLP. I made a video on JLP before. It's basically like an LP asset on Solana. So it's like roughly 40% or 30 to 40% Solana, 10, 20% ETH and Bitcoin, and then the rest is stablecoin. So you're providing liquidity. And I made a video in 2024 how I'm going to manage my portfolio throughout the bull market. And I mentioned that because I understand JLP, the asset, I really like the risk profile of JLP because it's one of those assets that will go up if the market goes up. But if the markets go down, it will outperform like almost every single crypto because there's stable coins in the pool, and also you receive all the fees that the asset generates. It also is the counterparty to Jupiter Perps, one of the most predatory products out there that a lot of people use for whatever reason. And 99% of retail traders lose money trading Perps, so all those retail trader losses accrue back to JLP. There are smart contract risks, so I'm not going to full port this thing, but that is going to be a core position of mine moving forward because my view is that I have no idea where we're in a cycle. I have no idea what the upside is. I have no idea what the downside is. So if I feel that way, I want my base asset in my portfolio, right? I want JLP to be a core holding in my portfolio. So that's kind of one of the main bags that I have. I also am starting to fool around more with prediction markets. Because if we think about asymmetric opportunities. Is it going to be in Bitcoin? Is it going to be in Ethereum? And by the way, I still think Bitcoin is an asymmetric opportunity. I do believe in like $1 million, $2 million Bitcoin eventually, sometime in my lifetime. But if I believe in cycles, there's less upside there, in my personal opinion. And if I think about like what is an asymmetric sector that I should pay attention to, I think it's prediction markets. Now, looking at Polymarket, what odds are there for a Polymarket airdrop? I have no idea. It's definitely under 50%, but it's definitely over 10% in my opinion. So if that's the case, there's a lot of implied EV, expected value, in using Polymarket. I wouldn't expect like a huge airdrop, but if I expect prediction markets to 10, 100x in users and volume in the future, it does make sense to at least put yourself in a position to get lucky. So I've been fairly active on Polymarket. I've demonstrated, although a small sample size, that I am profitable. Like I said, small sample size, but I've started to fool around Polymarket using multiple wallets in order to farm the airdrop. So from a content perspective, you might expect more prediction market content from me in the future, just because I think it's a really, really fascinating market that is still really inefficient, still pretty small, that I think will grow in the future. When it comes to content, if you look at my channel, I think you can observe that my output has come down. I think, earlier this year or like sometime last year, all of last year, I think I was making content for the sake of making content, just because I felt obligated to my audience to make content, create podcasts, etc. And unfortunately, what I think that ended up resulting in is some level of burnout on my end, where I stopped enjoying making content at some point. And if I was trying to always get guests on, like once a week or 2-3 times a month, it kind of resulted in lower quality guests, which also makes for worse content. And if I think back to why I started my YouTube channel in the past, I started this channel in 2020 when I was really getting started into DeFi, and I was sharing my learnings as we were like gambling, or maybe not gambling, as we were speculating on chain. I would lose money buying DeFi coins. I would make money buying Ponzi coins, and it was fun. And I think back then, my desire was to help people understand DeFi, make money in DeFi, and how to use DeFi to manage your portfolio to not only position yourself for upside, but also to protect downside. And I think that was like very, very helpful for a lot of people. And I know a lot of people are in crypto because of my content 4 or 5 years ago. Realistically, maybe I'm too hard on myself, but I think I'm not even I think the podcasts themselves have helped a lot of people, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback when it comes to podcasts. And I am bringing back Crypto Market Wizards after like a 7-month hiatus, so look out for those types of videos. But when it comes to like altcoin picks or whatever, right? Farcoin was funny, I guess. AI Meta was funny, but like DeFi stuff, it's made money, right? All these calls have made money, but it's not really. I'm not sure if it's like actually helped people. Perhaps it's good content in the sense that, okay, like you get to keep up to date with all these developments, but I'm not sure, like looking back, like the past 6 months, I'm necessarily proud of the videos I've made. Of course, there's some results oriented element to it, right? Because, if Maker was like pumping a lot more, then I would, feel like, yeah, I help people. But, I also have to, face the reality that maybe, I could be washed in a sense, right? Where if I want to help people, like why am I trying to like find altcoin picks if I don't have like a crazy ability, right? To pick altcoins. I think my track record is like fine, but I'm open-minded. Like I'm open-minded to the idea that, I would be more helpful for my audience to make prediction market content, for example. And that's why, I'm just like telling you guys that maybe I'm going to start pivoting my content to prediction markets. I'm still going to make all types of content in the future, but just wanted to let you know how I'm feeling, where my head is at, because I try to be transparent with you guys. But I think in the past 6 months, I think I've lost touch with my audience because of, like stuff that's going on in my head. So let's talk about what you can do. So obviously Polymarket, pretty cool stuff. Other two things I think is up in your arena as a on-chain user, airdrop farmer. There's two things. So one is Limitless. So this is a prediction market on Base. They explicitly have mentioned that they're doing a points program right now. Season 1 ends, I think, mid-September. So there's a month or 2-3 weeks or so left to farm this thing. The minimum bet size to qualify for the airdrop is $200. So it's a pretty low barrier to entry. And though, I wouldn't expect this thing to be like a killer airdrop or anything, because I think, when it comes to prediction markets, it's mostly Polymarket or Kalshi. But flashback like two years ago, I never would have expected DYDX to be flipped by Hyperliquid, right? And when I started farming Hyperliquid 2 years ago, I never would have imagined that it would be this big. So, I think when it comes to using crypto and like on-chain and farming, it's all about putting yourself in a position to get lucky. Don't expect too much, but hey, use good products, qualify for points, airdrops, and just, be an early user. And I think Limitless could be one. And, I made some, and also like, you can make money on this, right? I bet, when I first bet on the ETH BTC market, the market was pricing in a 2% chance that ETH BTC will be between 0.04 and 0.05. I bet yes on that market, and now hopefully it will expire 200%. So that would be a 50x. So I get a 50x, so $100 to $5,000, and then I get Limitless points. Hopefully that works, but I would check it out. It doesn't take that much capital. And speaking of not taking that much capital, I would also check out this hyper EVM prediction market called Outcome. So they're going to do a trading competition on testnet, so you don't even have to risk money, which will start in under 24 hours. So you have until the next 20 hours to sign up for it. So it's free. It's not free money, but it's zero risk, where you can make real money, right? If you actually make money or make testnet money. And, Hyper EVM, I think Hyper EVM is going to grow, hopefully. So, prediction market on Hyper EVM could be potentially a cook in terms of like farming to airdrop. So that's going to be for me. So yeah, like I said, when it comes to my portfolio, I'm no more leverage, right? I have taken some profits. Grateful for the profits I've taken. I still own some Maker, which I've converted to Sky. I'm staking it right now for roughly an 18% yield. So I'm not really in a rush to sell this thing. I still think like the valuation is fair and the yield component is always nice. But I'll probably stop making content around it in the future because I'm not even sure how interesting it is. And I also don't like find it fun, and I think the best content that I've made before is like when I'm having fun. And yeah, I also own stablecoins, which I'm farming with, JLP, which is a core holding in the bull or bear market, and also betting, making some speculative bets on Polymarket, which I might make videos about in the future. So look out for that. And also, yeah, lots of podcasts coming. I'll be selected with guests, but hopefully those will be beneficial for all of you moving forward. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me. See you guys soon, hopefully, right? Bye-bye.